biggest twist yet in the race to the White House. U.S. President Joe Biden has finally called it quits as a Democratic candidate. He won't stand for re-election. And he's named Vice President Kamala Harris to lead the Democratic Party's ticket against Donald Trump. This comes after weeks of pressure from trusted lieutenants, former presidents, potential donors, Democrat lawmakers and senators, and widespread public opinion. Now, the 81-year-old president finally decided on Sunday morning to pass the torch, as many called it. President Biden tweeted a note addressed to my fellow Americans, saying he believed it to be in the best interest of the party and the country to stand down and focus on his duties as president. He also said he would be addressing the nation later this week. Minutes later, another message, this one addressed to my fellow Democrats, quote unquote, full support and endorsement for Kamala Harris to be the nominee of our party this year. Biden recalled that picking Kamala Harris as vice president in 2020 was his first decision as party nominee 2020. Over the last few weeks, Vice President Kamala Harris has acted as the White House's first line of defense, particularly after Biden's faltering performance in the first presidential debate against Trump. 59-year-old Harris is the first woman, first black person, and first person of South Asian descent to serve as U.S. Vice President. Harris said she intends to earn and win the nomination and do everything in her power to unite the country to defeat Donald Trump. The vice president and the other Democratic Party leaders have expressed strong praise for President Biden for what they called his extraordinary leadership, dedicated service. Kamala Harris has already got endorsement from former President Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, besides 79 of Democrat leaders as per a YouGov poll. But there is no clear support from former President Barack Obama, indicating a hesitation among several Democrats in accepting Harris as a party's White House nominee. Obama only tweeted that Democrats will name an outstanding nominee. It promises to be a long and winding road ahead for the Democratic Party as it heads into its national convention on the 19th of August. For more on President Biden's exit and his endorsement of Kamala Harris, we spoke to Spencer Critchley. He's a former communication advisor on the Obama campaign. Listen into what he said.
Well, there's actually been quite a flood of endorsements coming in, including, I believe, all of the major potential rivals for Kamala Harris if there had been a primary, say, some months ago. And I think that former President Obama's holding back on endorsing her matches his typical pattern, which is to wait for the party to make a choice so that when he gives his endorsement, and he has to be aware of the enormous weight that endorsement carries, it's a full endorsement of the party's nominee, as opposed to the situation that might exist if he had endorsed one candidate and another candidate turns out to be the nominee. I think Democrats are feeling extremely relieved at the same time as they feel very sad about President Biden leaving the race today, because their worst nightmare would have been a very divisive fight amongst multiple candidates at a time when the party could not afford that. And instead, what appears to be happening is the party is very quickly uniting behind Vice President Harris. I fully expect former President Obama to endorse her the moment she becomes the nominee, should that happen. And as I say, this fits his previous pattern when there's potentially more than one Democratic nominee. I don't think he has ever endorsed one in advance of the nomination. So that doesn't surprise me. You mentioned the enthusiasm of the donors, and that appears to be from top to bottom. The campaign is reporting, last I heard, $30 million and counting raised today. And it looks like it may be setting a record for the largest amount any Democratic campaign has ever raised in a single day. As I say, I think there's a combination of great sadness today about the terribly difficult choice that President Biden had to make, but enormous relief that the party appears to be very quickly coming together and uniting as one voice, which I think really is not that surprising given the stakes. This really is a choice. Often people in political campaigns, especially presidential campaigns, make these claims that this is the most important election of our lifetime. This is one of those cases when it's very likely true, because this is a choice between America continuing as a liberal democracy as it's been since its founding, or veering off track towards authoritarianism, and really, if Trump has his way, outright autocracy, where the only purpose of the country would be to serve his impulse of the moment.